public hearings. So anyone can tune in and observe from the public by going to YouTube. I need to read through our hearing script. This basically just covers the procedure for the hearing. And then we'll jump right into the presentation from the applicant. Mr. Desai, one more question for you. Are you here in your capacity as the attorney for the owner of lot 12?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. All right, I looked through my email after I saw you came in, and I thought there was an email about you being here in some sort of individual capacity or something, but that's fine. That's no problem. I just want to know before I start in our procedure. So this is the May 18th, 2022 session of the zoning hearing examiner docket. My name is David Serkey. I'm the zoning hearing examiner for the city of Cincinnati. I'll preside over the hearing. The case before us today is case number ZH20220072. The purpose of this hearing is to allow applicants and opposing parties to testify and to offer and refute evidence and testimony. This hearing will follow rules found in the zoning code and supplemental rules of the zoning hearing examiner. All testimony and evidence that an applicant or any opposing party wishes to offer, must be presented at this hearing, unless a party has submitted testimony or evidence in the form of writing prior to this hearing. The hearing will proceed as follows. The applicant, the applicant's attorney, or the applicant's agent will first present the applicant's case. If there is anyone here from the public, they'll have an opportunity to speak after the applicant has presented its case. If a party of record is represented by an attorney, the attorney for the party of record may present witnesses after the applicant has presented its case and may cross-examine any person who has testified at this hearing. In the event that any party testifies or offers argument in opposition to this application, the applicant shall have an opportunity to rebut that testimony and or argument offered in opposition. After the applicant has been given an opportunity to rebut any testimony and or argument offered in opposition, any attorney for a party of record may make a closing statement. And then finally, the applicant will have an opportunity to make a closing statement. So for our purposes here today, I'm going to allow Mr. Dekers, to the extent Mr. McAlpin wants to provide any testimony, allow them to tell me about the case, about the application, why they think it's appropriate, why I should grant this relief, anything else they think is important for me to know about this application before I make a decision. I will then give the zoning plans examiner, Trey Sheldon, an opportunity to provide any testimony about the application that he would like. I'll then go to Mr. Desai. Mr. Desai, you will have the option, if you would like, to cross-examine Mr. Dekers or Mr. McAlpin if he testifies. Ask any questions. I'll also allow you to make any arguments about this application if you would like. And then I will give Mr. Dekers an opportunity to respond, or Mr. Derkers, sorry, an opportunity to respond to anything that you've said, Mr. Desai, or elaborate on any of the questions that you asked or any of those responses. I'll allow Mr. Desai, if you would like, an opportunity to make any closing remarks, and then Mr. Derkers a chance to make any closing remarks. After all presentations have been made, I will close the hearing. Decisions may be expected within 2 weeks. I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of the application being considered. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or to make any comments. I may also refuse to consider hearsay testimony. That's generally evidence you want to introduce that consists of statements made by someone who's not present at this hearing. In the event of any technical difficulties with our Zoom technology, I'll do my best to troubleshoot those on the fly, but to the extent there's some defect with the technology that prevents us from meaningfully going forward with this hearing, I may continue or postpone the hearing at my discretion. Okay, last thing I need to do is swear in all of our witnesses. If you intend on providing any testimony here today, making any comments, asking any questions, doing anything other than just strictly observing, and you are not an attorney, then you need to be sworn in. So if that's you, if you could take yourself off of mute, I need everyone to raise their right hand and to answer out loud. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, great. Let's go ahead and get started. Mr. Derkers, the floor is yours.
John and Jennifer Niemeyer, who live at this house presently, would like to add a swimming pool in the rear yard that's approximately 19 by 40. In doing so, The location of the pool where we have it is basically centered behind the existing house, not the detached garage, but the existing house. The pool is located elevation wise. They have an existing lower level porch, which we're going to use as part of the outdoor dining area, living area. And so the pool elevation is set to match that porch that existing porch elevation. The setbacks for the pool meet all the zoning codes that are applicable to that lot. The only thing we are asking for is basically the request for the allowable height of the retaining wall and also the allowable cumulative excavation, which is always an issue when we're going through these variance meetings. Basically, we had a geotech report done, which they said the ground was fine to build on, but as far as the existing grade, once we locate the pool, install the pool, the existing contour of the grade was not to be disturbed. So in other words, how you see the grade now from basically the backside of the pool down to the exterior lot lines is going to remain the same. So with doing this, we had to create two retaining walls, one on the southwest side, one on the southeast side. And basically the southernmost point of those two retaining walls, with not reworking the grade, has an exposed height of 12 feet. But then it quickly tapers back up on each side, going with the existing grade, back to basically 2 feet on the northeast side and approximately 4 or 5 feet on the southwest side, where it comes in and meets the existing house. The retaining walls, basically a concrete structural retaining wall that's designed by our structural engineer, and it is faced, the entire thing is faced in brick veneer, so there'll be no exposed concrete foundation. And the brick will match the color of the brick of the house. And we are adding landscaping along the southwest wall with 4 large arborvitae and 1 deciduous tree. There's 3 existing trees in the southern corner of the property that 2 of them are pretty much dead. The other one just has high limbs that I think that's going to have to be determined whether we have to remove that or not. There is no landscaping on the southeast side. That's basically, we were trying to maintain a 3-foot access to be able to go from one side of the pool to the other for maintenance and care of the lawn. The elevation of the pool, as far as in relationship to other houses on that street, the house to the northeast is, I think, 80 or 90 feet above this pool location. There is not a house presently on the lot next to us to the left, and the pool is approximately probably 45 feet above the elevation of the houses down on Golden Hollow. And I think that's about it.
Okay. So what, apologize if I missed this. What's the maximum depth of the pool?
The maximum depth of the pool is 5 feet, the pool itself.
Right. But you need to, maybe educate me a little bit here. You need to dig 18.5 feet into the hillside in order to get a pool at that depth?
Not a pool of that depth. The 12 feet's a function of setting the pool at the lower level elevation of the house, and also a function of we're not allowed disturbing the existing ground on the other side of it, of the other side of the retaining wall. So you have kind of two fixed points. You have the fixed point of the lower level elevation that's already there, and then you have the fixed point of the existing ground around the perimeter of the two retaining walls.
Got it. You mean of the existing retaining wall? Or the new retaining wall coming?
The two new retaining walls.
Gotcha. Okay.
David,
All right.
David, if I might chime in for just a moment, just to help clarify. If
Trey,
you look,
give me 1 sec, Trey. Give me
Okay.
one.
Sure.
So, Mr. Durkers, were you able to view any of the correspondence that came from neighboring property owners?
I have not seen any of that.
Okay. So they came in this week and this morning into the project docs system, but two separate neighbors that are located on Golden Hollow below.
Yes.
Each expressed concerns. Sort of read some of the concerns into the record here. Concern about further modification and destruction of the hillside, which could lead to instability, erosion, and drainage issues. The cut and fill, the large retaining wall, and 7-foot variance all point to this risk. Second concern is further loss of peace and quiet, disruption of noise, construction. Concerns that the entire site has been problematic from the beginning: flooding, noise, dirt, loss of trees, shrubs, erosion, drainage issues, and more. So that's just a sort of synopsis of the concerns of one neighbor. I believe the other one sort of mirrors that as well. Both, again, neighbors. One of them, I think, is the closest neighbor down on Golden Hollow. And so, do you have any response to that?
Well, I think from the drainage standpoint, I think it's actually going to improve the drainage because, again, we are not disturbing any of the drainage patterns either from the left or from the southwest or the southeast. In fact, I would argue it would enhance it, improve it, because we're taking a large area where the pool is and the surrounding pool deck, and we're no longer, that area that's now draining down towards Golden Hollow is now being captured either in the pool or with drains that will be hard piped to the storm system. So I would argue that it would improve the drainage because less water is going to be going down that hillside. As far as the noise from pools, I mean, it's the right of the homeowner to have a pool. And I would argue actually the noise is going to be less with the elevation that we're proposing versus if it was down another 8-10 feet, which would make it, less of an elevation change from where they're at to where we're at. And visually, you are seeing a 12-foot high retaining wall in the corner that's going, like I said, back to the house where it's only 4 or 5 feet, and we're screening that with new landscaping that actually isn't there right now. And so you're actually going to be seeing less of the house, and you're not going to be seeing that retaining wall at all. So I would argue visually it's going to be less imposing than what it is now. And also there's a lot of trees along their two property lines, the southeast and southwest property line, that they're deciduous. So anytime the leaves are up, I think they screen that view a lot.
Okay. And generally, you don't think that this is going to impact the stability or integrity of the hillside?
Well, I forgot to mention that. We hired a geotechnical engineer, Alton Wixon, Patnall, who is well respected, well known, we've done test borings, test holes, and he has told us that we can basically design a traditional concrete foundation wall, concrete footing system. And as long as we do not put anything back on that hillside that's not already there, which I've explained before, is the existing grade is remaining as is, that it is stable and there's no issue with doing this. And we've had a structural engineer design the whole retaining wall system per specifications, per loads, per soil conditions.
Okay. Anything else now, Mr. Dirkers?
No, thank you.
Thanks. All right, let's go over to Trey Sheldon. Trey.
Yeah, David. The one thing I wanted to point out, either whether you look at it in the applicant's packet or in my staff report as figure 5, it gives a pretty good illustration of the way in which at the very corner of the wall is at its highest point. In order for them to get down to a frost footing, I mean, you have to have, for building code, you and I often see these in hearings where you have wing walls off of driveways where you have to count it toward the cumulative excavation and fill, but in reality they're trying to simply dig down to frost footing and to get to a stable frost footing. So they have to have the bottom of the wall at the south corner, as Mr. Dirkers stated, has to be able to reach a foundation. The foundation has to be able to reach stable bedrock there. And in order to not disturb anything downslope, as he just stated, there could be no overburden or any additional work done downslope of this. So I did think it was important to view those documents, those two elevations, the southwest and southeast elevation, as they do a very good job of illustrating how, yes, the wall is necessary at the most extreme point on the corner, but very quickly tapers into the hillside as the code requires, and the Hillside study from years ago required stepping whenever possible, and here they're doing just that. They are stepping it into the hillside, and it's not as if they're not trying to do a 12-foot deep swimming pool here with the high diving board or something. It's only a 5-foot deep pool, but that wall has to go down that deep in order to hit the rock, hit rock, and be at least 30 inches under the frost footing. So I did want to bring up those practical, just functional examples, functional aspects of it, that this is not just them trying to get a 12-foot deep pool or something. It's a 5-foot deep pool. It's just necessary to follow along what the geotech expert required them to do. And they have stepped it as best I think they could under the circumstances. The other point I would make, I did field a call from one homeowner who was down on Golden Hollow. I realized that the individual's probably just seems generally upset with the entire development of that, which used to be at the back of an estate. So I think for years they were used to having almost like it'd be like a private, a park behind them, a park-like environment of just trees. So I know that they're concerned just generally about the development there, but that was all approved long ago. It is a reality. I've tried to, I've talked with Mr. Dirkers about whether screening's possible along the south side. You have to have at least the 3 feet setback for zoning for the pool for any accessory structure. So it's got to be set from the rear property line at least 3 feet. And I don't know that, evergreens or whatever are going to hold up here. I don't know whether it's possible to have some sort of an ivy or something that would climb up the wall, maybe, or something like that would soften it for the people who are down on Golden Hollow. I think there are some possibilities there. If they did some sort of ground cover that would grow up along the wall, it would just present as kind of a green wall. So that was one thought that I had. The other point is that that is 100 and almost, I measured, and to the closest house on Golden Hollow, it is between 160 and 170 feet from this pool. And I believe Mr. Durkers previously stated it's some 50 or 60 feet or something higher in elevation as well. So looking through trees. So I also did want to make that point that during the time when the pool would be used during the summertime, the deciduous trees are going to be in full leaf. People aren't going to be out using the pool when it's December, January, February, whatnot, when the leaves leaves aren't on the pool. So hopefully the timing of that works out so that it is minimal nuisance to the neighbors. That was just another thought that I have, is that these are, when the leaves are off the trees, the people aren't going to be swimming in here. So just those are two thoughts that I had, and with regard to it. So I don't know if they could do anything to soften the landscaping. As far as the west side of this, as Mr. Durker stated, there are going to be some emerald green giant arborvitae there. So that's going to be like a solid green hedge. So anybody who's at the cul-de-sac there or looking at this from the west, they're just going to be very, 20 some foot tall, solid evergreen trees there. So I think the screening concern for me was more to the south and anything they might do in that regard. So if it works out, they can put some kind of climbing vine or something on there that softens it. That would make the neighbors down there happy. That's the best suggestion I can have.
Okay. Thanks, Trey. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Okay. Mr. Desai, do you have any questions for Mr. Durkers?
I do. And I will just say we are not antagonistic to the relief that the applicant is seeking. So just for the record, we are not here objecting. We are here trying to learn what it is that the applicant has done, because obviously the staff report was glowing about the project, even though it's asking for a retaining wall height of 15.5 feet, which is of course 7.5 feet over what's allowed. And it's asking for excavation and fill of 18.5 feet, which is 10.5 feet over what's allowed. But we were pleasantly surprised to see the staff report so glowing about what was taking place. And as I mentioned, we have lot 12, which is yet to be built upon. But once it is, there will likely be a pool put in there, and there will be a request that is similar. So we're trying to learn what it is that the city wants to see so that we do it right the first time. So I do just have a couple questions, though. The way the staff report read, it read that what the relief that was requested was required for the proposed pool. My question to Mr. Durkers is, could you do a pool that doesn't require the relief that's being requested?
Absolutely not. I mean, we would, no matter what location, if we would shift obviously the pool down the hill more, it only becomes more severe. If we shift the pool up the hill, then you get into the same issue just on the other side of the pool, because then you're holding up the side where the driveway is. No, I think the pool has to be in the rear yard, which basically means it's behind the house. And whether you shift it up or down the hill, definitely down the hill makes the retaining walls taller. Going up the hill, I still think we're into the same kind of height requirements or height variance requests that we're asking for now. And I would say you look at the drawings, and I think Trey expounded on it, that we're asking for this 18 feet, but again, it's a function of structure and frost lines that you have to hit. So there's a lot of this, the 18 feet, and the worst you're going to see the wall, or the highest point of the wall exposed, is only 12 feet. And it's at that corner. And then, like I said, the grades just taper quickly back up, where on the southeast side, it goes up to 2 feet, and on the southwest side, 4 feet.
Mr. Dirkers, I'm sorry, could you explain that just again? So even though the staff report says the wall is going to be 15 and a half feet, you were saying that it's only 12, and I'm sorry, I lost you, sir.
It has to be 15 and a half feet tall from like where the footing's like a shoe that the wall sits on. So from the bottom of that footing to the top of the wall, which is the top of the pool deck, is 15 feet. But that footing, it always has to be at least 30 inches to 36 inches below the ground.
I got
The
you.
reason you have to do that is because of the change in temperature. It's called a frost line. So if you didn't have it that deep, the wall would want to move up and down when the frost comes out. The soil changes temperatures, and it wants to move that wall. So structurally, you have to have it at least 30 inches to 36 inches. So of that 15 feet, there's only 12 exposed and 3's underground, which you never see, but you need it from a structure standpoint.
Okay, I got that. And if I heard you right, even if you move the pool up the hill, yeah, maybe it's not 15 and a half feet, but you're still going to exceed the 8-foot amount, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Because then you push the retaining wall, the smaller retaining wall, which is within code on the I call it the northeast side. You're pushing it up the hill, and then that retaining wall has to start to get larger. So you're just kind of shifting the amount of retaining wall, the large amount of retaining wall we have right now on the southwest side, and you're just shifting it up and making it higher on the northeast side.
The other question I had for you was about the cut and fill. In the staff report, it says 18 and a half feet, which is roughly 10 feet over what's allowed. Did you have any kind of a stability study done in terms of does the pool, the retaining wall, the whole system, if you will, does it further stabilize the hill? I know you said it doesn't destabilize it, but I was just curious, with that amount of cut and fill, is your geotech, is he telling you or she telling you that even with that kind of cut and fill, you are providing stability with the structure you're putting in terms of the overall pool structure?
Well, we definitely are. The geotech report and the structural engineer have designed this to basically obviously hold the pool in place, hold the house in place, and hold all the hillside, the natural grade in place just the way it is right now.
Understood.
As far as making it better than what it is now, I can't answer that directly. I could ask our engineers. My guess is it would, because you're actually decreasing the amount of burden on the hillside below the pool. Because right now that retaining wall is basically holding all that above it back from putting more burden on what's below it.
Understood. Okay. I think those are all the questions I have for Mr. Dirkers. I did have some for Mr. Sheldon, if I could go forth, or would you like me to stop?
So typically, I don't allow for cross-examination of city employees. It's actually in the code, in the procedure. If you have more general questions about how your clients may be able to navigate some of the zoning code issues in general, it may be better to just contact the zoning department outside of the scope of this hearing, to ask them questions that are a little bit more pointed to your property and what the potential plans for that property are.
I really just had a question about what was meant by something said in the report. And I'll maybe just
Sure.
ask you, and if you think it's appropriate. This is, I guess, on page, I'm going to call it 5 of 6 of the PDF. And in F as in Frank, it said there are no proximal public viewing places. I just didn't know what that meant.
What the, is it okay to answer, Dave? I mean, I'm just, it's a
Yeah.
generalized question. I mean,
Sure, go ahead.
because the code in that section, subsection F, it requires you to consider if there's something like a public park or something that is affected by that. So a public viewing area. So if you were, for example, if this was located up where you were near Alms Park, for example, you were up off of Stanley or something, you know, a development up there that's in the hillside. Similarly, if it was going to, a project might block a view from a trail on at Alt Park or Alms Park or whatnot, then it would be a factor for Mr. Sturkey to take into consideration. And we consider that in our report here. We also generally consider respecting the views of neighbors and so on here. And here it's tucked behind the house. And I guess if there was anything I was going to sum up about this that I think that you're inquiring about, for zoning, it's extremely important in the existing zoning code and in section G. You'll note that I'm referring to the Cincinnati Hillside Development Guidelines. That was a report done, it's done several decades ago that prioritized what was important for development standards in the hillside. And a great deal of time and effort was put into it. And stepping is a very important factor whenever we look at these. Had this project asked to straight up cut, say, 20 feet, just a solid cut, it might have not been as what you termed glowing, because they did. You can see how they step from, from that, they step up following the grade to just the minimum to get their frost footing up to where, it minimizes to like 2 feet or 4 feet. And the fact that this so illustrates the stepping, it's an important factor to consider, because if somebody were to come in and say, I just want a straight cut of 25 feet, that's different than a cumulative cut over. I hope that makes sense. It's different to us, even though you have to count the cumulative excavation and fill. I have no choice but to do that for what the total is. But a mitigating factor is when you step into the hill, that's exactly what you're supposed to be doing, is stepping into it to minimize, a severe cut. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does. It does.
So by proximal, do you mean like nearby?
I mean nearby by proximal. Yeah, I mean, there are no nearby public viewing places. There might be a public viewing place. I don't know of any right around here, frankly. Grandin Road, there's nothing. But I just mean there's nothing nearby, and I generally put that in there. Like I said, if this was right next to Alms Park or Alt Park, and we were doing this analysis, I might not be able to say that.
Mr. Sheldon, if I could just ask one other clarification question at the very end of the report. Under findings in number 2, it says the proposed pool and retaining wall are compatible with the predominant development in the neighborhood. I didn't quite understand what that meant. And I presume you're referencing something in the code or guidelines or something.
There are many homes along Grandin Road and in this vicinity, all the way along Grandin and Rookwood and so on, that have swimming pools and have retaining walls. It's a very common amenity in this neighborhood.
Do a number of them, if have walls that go above 8 feet, that have to be above 8 feet for the reasons we've talked about?
I can't speak to all that. I don't know. For individual properties, and many of them could be legally non-conforming and were done 25 years ago, and somebody may have improved it, but a lot of these homes in the vicinity are not new like this. A lot of them are if the neighborhood, a lot of these homes are 75, 80 years old. So
right.
So yeah, I can't really speak to that.
Okay. So it was just basically saying, hey, other people have pools in the area and they use retaining walls to support them.
That's fair to say.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's.
That's all I want.
I'm not saying. Trey, you're saying that the proposed pool and retaining wall is compatible with the development, not necessarily that other properties have the exact same circumstances on their property, right?
That's correct.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Okay.
It's a common amenity. I'm just basically saying these are common amenities that people have around the neighborhood. Now, I can't speak to the exact same situation, but it's very common for people to have pools in this neighborhood. And some of them were necessary retaining walls, but these are mostly large lot estate, like, pseudo estate like homes that often have pools and terracing and so on around them.
Gotcha.
Thanks, Trey.
Thank you, Mr. Sheldon.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Desai, any other questions for Mr. Durkers?
No, just those are all great to clarify. I appreciate it, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other statements or anything on behalf of your clients?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, got it. Mr. Durkers, anything in closing or otherwise before we adjourn?
Have nothing? No.
Okay. All right. I think we'll leave it at that then. I want to thank everyone for their time, their testimony, and Mr. Desai for your questions. I'm going to take this under advisement, take a little bit closer look. I do need to, I typically will do site visits on this where it's more or less a drive-by of the neighborhood and sort of an assessment of the neighborhood. So that's something that I think I'll take advantage of for this property. Decisions typically take about 2 weeks. Unfortunately, right now we have an extremely high volume of cases and applications that are coming in. And one of my colleagues is on paternity leave, which is putting us even more shorthanded right now. So I apologize for the delay, but I just wanted to sort of be realistic and upfront with you guys that I think it might take slightly longer than 2 weeks. I'll do everything I can to get it out to you in 2 weeks, but I anticipate that it might be closer to 3. If you'd like a status update on that decision, reach out to me directly. I'm happy to let you guys know where I'm at. I will likely make a decision on the application before that 2 weeks. But then again, it will take me some time to actually formalize that decision in a written opinion. And so if you want a status update on any of that, feel free to reach out to me and I'm happy to let you know where I'm at. And likewise, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out and I'm happy to let you know. Any questions right now about any of that?
I have 2, David. One, if you do this site visit, do you need the homeowners to be there?
I typically don't. If for any reason I feel like I do, I'll let you know. I typically really, it is just sort of a drive through, stay on public. I also do like a more thorough CAGIS search and look through the CAGIS maps and that sort of thing as well as a part of the site visit. So I typically don't really need to get back there. But if for any reason I do, I'll let you guys know. Okay,
just so I can coordinate that with them, make sure they're back in town. The second thing is the appeal process. I know there's a 30-day appeal process, or and that starts from the time you issue your written decision.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So there will be on the decision. There'll be a date of decision on the very top, and then on the very last page. The time starts from whatever that date is. So 30 days from that. Then after that, the appeal time is run.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. But I think permits can issue before that appeal time runs. In fact, I know that they can, and they do. So whether you'd like to start the project before or after that appeal time runs is sort of up to you and your call. But I don't think that appeal time needs to run before we can actually get the permits approved and out to you.
Okay.
All right.
One note on that point, Mark. Since I'm sorry, Mr. Durkers, since you did this as a preliminary review rather than a permit delay review, please give me a heads up ahead of time. Shoot me an email. Let me know that you've applied, so that I realize it's coming and so on. That's helpful. A lot of these hearings, it's come from a denial letter of a permit, but in this instance, you don't have a permit in. I did a preliminary review for you as you requested. So please let me know when you've applied for the permit.
Okay, it's probably still going to be 30, 45 days before we get everything in order. So it might coincide with the time limit of the appeal anyway, but I will let you know.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
As soon as I finish the decision, guys, I put it into a PDF. I email it to everybody who's in the hearing today. So you all have a copy of the decision really just moments after it's complete. Again, do you have any other questions? Let me know. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you again for your time and your testimony. We are adjourned.